Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I am your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Yes, ma'am. I'm Kathryn Rowell, and I'm talking to you from Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay, and can you tell me extensively about your past leading up into what you do now?
Yes, ma'am, I can. My background is 36 years in law enforcement, all the way from officer on the street answering calls of service through the rank of captain in the first 32 years. And in that upper level of lieutenant and captain, I dealt with budgets and negotiations and vendor management. And then when I retired from that department, I went to become a chief of police in another department. So continued with the vendor management negotiations and dealing with the budgets.
Okay, and in your government of law enforcement, can you tell me a challenge that came up in your career as a woman? Because it had to be hard as a woman. I hear these stories all the time in law enforcement. And if you don't feel comfortable with it, I'll find another question because this is a different question.
No, not a problem. Because of the span of my career, I came in a time when sometimes appropriately or bluntly putting it, a lot of times women were expected to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen and not be in that particular career. And so there was still a lot of good old boy system going on. And so you had to earn the respect and be there and do the job just as good, if not better, than the guys were doing. So that was the early on career learning that portion of it and realizing the playing field that I was on, and then just getting out there and working hard every day.
Okay, well said. And tell me about you being a business financial management and operations. You're working with business financial management and operations optimization.
Yes, ma'am, I do. What I do is I'll come in working with the client and I'm looking at their daily indirect cost. So think debit and credit cards, telecoms, fuel waste, etc. Areas that the client may think they're overpaying for, but they really can't prove it because they're comparing this month's invoice against last month's invoice. They may have gotten some savings when they called and complained a little bit, but they really don't know how much they truly could be saving until somebody like me comes in. And then we actually can compare to a multitude of vendors across multiple years of savings, and then we can tell them what the true cost should be.
How has your experience managed budgets from 4 million to over 32 million influenced your approach to scaling financial strategies for small versus large businesses?
You're always looking to be physically conservative when it comes down to your budgets. And then you're always looking for the best deal possible when you're actually looking for buying new products or new services. And so while it may not be the cheapest option, that may not be the best product. It may be in the middle. It could be at the top end, just depends on whatever the client is looking for. And in that respect, you still have to be concerned about your budget line, whether it's for your training, new technology, etc. And so you need somebody who can come in and go, okay, I understand you're passionate about X, but X will only do so much. And therefore, you really are looking at X, Y, and Z is what you really are needing, but you've only focused on one particular task when you really are going to have a multitude of things that need to happen. And so it's going to cost you a little more, but it also helps you in your future planning.
Tell me about a small versus large business that you had to take over and try to help with with business. Like tell me one good thing that came out of a small business versus a large business, you know, working with small over large or large over small.
They each have their own unique circumstances that they're dealing with. Small businesses usually are struggling with cash flow, that they're worried about cash flow coming in, going out. They may need more employees, but they're not sure how to exactly hire or when to hire them. And so what we're doing is looking at their expenses, finding those monies that we can loosen up, and then help them either maybe hire another employee on that side, or maybe just to find new technology that can help them do the extra job or whatever the task was that they're wanting to do. And so in this respect, it's the how will it benefit the business in the long run as they expand, so that they can actually get out and get ahead in the expansion of their business. Because what happens a lot of times with small business is the owner is very involved in the day-to-day process. And until they can kind of step back and let others handle the day-to-day and then work on the strategic growth of the business, they can't always guide the business as fast into the growth as it should be. And so being able to help them do that is key for the small business. In the larger businesses, it's going to help them tighten up their budgets in the respect, because sometimes it's been one of those things where you'll have people coming and going. They've got staff turnover. And so people forget to turn off software licenses, for example. You may have 200 software licenses for a certain product, and you only have 100 staff. So turn off the software licenses. You can turn those back on again as you hire staff, and instead take that savings. Maybe it's to provide better benefits for your current staff, better health insurance, additional services. Maybe it's additional time off, or maybe it's to work on your social media so that you are attracting more clients. Therefore, you can hire more staff and produce more of your products.
Well said. Have you ever, so I take it you have seen a small business with short attributes, like short problems, grow and expand. You have actually carried a business through this process, right?
I've helped start, or not start the business, but help them in that process. Yes, on that one. I have not carried them into major significant growth, but I've helped them at least tighten up so that they can expand.
Okay, and tell me, what are the most common hidden cost saving opportunities you've identified in businesses during your consulting work?
There's generally four top areas in a business that we're going to see: debit and credit card processing, their telecoms, and their waste are the big three that we'll usually see for standalone businesses. And then it could be fuel. It could also be uniforms and linens, or something else like that. Some type of recyclables will be their other fourth area. It just depends on the particular business.
In overseeing staffing from 10 to 190 personnel, what key lessons have you learned about aligning team size with organizational goals?
Don't put too many people with your managers, because what happens is that they become overwhelmed and they cannot keep up with what their people are doing. You don't want to be micromanaging the employees. You want employees who are motivated and self-sustaining, but they are also still willing to come to the manager and say, hey, I don't understand, or I need some help, and do that. But if you've got too big a team, the manager doesn't have time for their job, much less to help their own team.
Well said. And how do you adapt your budgeting expertise from public sector grants to private sector funding sources?
It's still going to be the same, because you still have to keep up with your income and your expenses. And so whether you are reporting to a governmental agency or you're reporting to the public, if you're a publicly traded company, or your shareholders on that portion of it, you still have to manage your income and your expenses. And so making sure those are reported correctly obviously is key. That's why we also work very closely with the internal staff when it comes to their internal finance directors and their could be external CPAs that they've got. So those are the professionals who obviously are preparing those reports, profit and loss reports. They are the ones that we work with closely to help identify those expenses to help them tighten up those budgets.
Isn't the help with finances is probably like a quarterly thing that you have to do for them? Like you probably teach them for like a month, well, this should be done this way and that should be done that way. Is that what you do?
Not so much on how to enter the actual expenses into the books. That usually is already handled internally on that side of it. We're looking more at, hey, these are fees that you didn't realize were being added on. We need to take a look at those, or we need to take a look at the contract to see if these fees were even allowed. Those are little areas that we are looking at to see and help the actual client save money.
Can you share an example of a process optimization project where you collaborated with a C-suite executive to achieve measurable, profitable gains?
Yes, we would have helped a company in that respect. We would have helped them change over from older equipment that was actually being used to, in this case, it would be like radio systems, and improve the radio systems. So where they were going from the old school type radio bands to the newer digital systems, then what we were doing was helping them because they were now able to communicate with other agencies on that process of it. And so it's a little longer process because not only are you probably using internal funds, which they did, but you're also looking at grants from the state and the federal side, and that's a little longer process while you're waiting for the monies to be released.
What role has technology played and involved in your cost saving strategies over the past decade?
Technology does play a part as far as helping with the analysis to help speed up some of the analysis work, but some of it is still just good old fashioned picking up the phone and calling vendors and actually talking to those vendors. The other side of it, obviously, is everybody emails. And so you're always on an email chain with somebody about something, even though you may have started out the phone call first, but it usually is going to have email chains involved. So that's a big deal when it comes to technology. Obviously, we also do presentations for our clients, showing them that, hey, here's what we have found, here's what we recommend, or at least are offering you for options, and then we'll go from there. And then each month we are actually reviewing the areas that we have touched. And so we're coming back with a post-audit report each month for our clients. So they are seeing the savings each month laid out in front of them, actually on paper.
Well said. And how do you balance short-term efficiency improvements with long-term sustainability in business operations?
Well, you can make a short-term adjustments in your budgets to go ahead and fund things for this point, but you actually have to look for the long-term goal is what you're doing. So is it going to be a new revenue stream that you're going to go for, whether it's a grant or some type of capital funding that's available out there? Is it you're looking for a budget infusion from maybe your C-suite is going to have some type of capital fund that they are releasing those funds for. And so your department is now able to work on a project that maybe they have put off for the last year or two. So you have to do some juggling when it comes down to it. But the idea is that long-term sustainability on that project definitely has to be funded.
Tell me more about what capital funding is and grants is and the differences between the two.
Usually capital funding is already in the municipality side. Capital funding is usually set aside for specific large projects. So most of the time it's going to be anywhere between 25 and 50,000 is going to be the bottom of the expense, and it could go on up into the millions. And then when it comes to the grant side of it, those grants are usually going to be specific to the particular project. So in this case, like if you're wanting to put in a new radio system, both the dispatch center, the radios, etc. The municipality have a actual you have money in the project itself, but you are also asking, say, the state or the federal government for funds to help match onto that. So you might be paying a 50-50 match. You put up 50%, the federal government puts up 50%, and you have to, basically show what you do each month as far as with receipts and work that has progressed. So it helps make the income stream, or it makes the project maybe actually go to fruition, to actually be completed in a more timely manner than it would be if the local government municipality was actually trying to fund it completely.
Okay, and is like capital funding, is that sort of like venture capital, or is it venture capital the same as capital funding? How does that work?
Venture capital is usually startup money. So you're a brand new business, and Shark Tank is the prime example on TV. You are going before the sharks, you have an idea, and they offer to go into your business for X amount of money and a certain percentage. That's venture capital. Capital funds itself are usually already set aside or dedicated by the business or by the municipality. They have already dedicated $100,000 for road repairs this year, or $100,000 for new vehicles, that type. Those are dedicated funds. Now, does it mean that the city manager or the person in charge cannot change those dedicated funds should an emergency happen or something like that? But usually they are set aside already for particular projects.
What one last question about this and then we'll move on. What's the process that you would actually get capital funding? What's the process in getting it? Do you have to write something? What all gets set up for capital funding? Because I'm
If it's
very
in
interested.
Right. If it's in private business, you are coming up with a business plan and you are developing that plan. Usually you'll have somebody that's helped you if you haven't already done it yourself. And you will take that plan and a budget and your concept, and you will generally either go to a bank or a third party lender, and you're working basically to get a loan for this money is what you are doing under the assumption that you are going to produce, say, a new widget or whatever it is, and that you will sell X amount of these and be able to repay this loan every month as it comes due, and do it that way. If you are doing it through the municipality type situation, then what you would done is actually you would present to your boss or to the city manager or the mayor, whoever is the head dog for that. You would present to them your idea of, this is what we want to do, this is what the cost is, we've got it estimated to be, and this is why we are doing it, and we would like to have $100,000 or whatever it may be in capital funds set aside in the 26-27 budget year. And so that is something that they will then work to decide if that's reasonable, or if there's some other cost that is maybe more of a priority for the city or whatever the business is at the time.
Wow. I like that. Okay. Could you walk us through a challenge budget allocation scenario you navigated and the outcome of it?
Sure. Challenging budget scenario would be one of those where we have actually, prime example, we lost our communication center in itself because we took 2 lightning strikes within a couple of years to the antenna. And then because of that, more or less it fried the electronics. And so the equipment had to be replaced, and that meant that we had to start shuffling money from capital projects that we were looking to do to make over to actually change out equipment. And that was a priority. There are things that are in your capital project list that's more of a wish list that you would like to do, but then there are things that come up that you must do. And in this case, the communication was a must do because we were not only communicating for us, but other agencies in that particular county.
Okay. And in what ways has your municipal government background uniquely prepared you to advise private business owners on regulatory compliance and efficiency?
That is one of those areas where we regularly, municipalities have a ton of rules, whether it's in the municipal government itself, the state, or the feds. And as you are dealing in each of the areas, both monetary or anything else, you are having to follow those rules. And so when it comes down to money, you don't mix private funds and public funds together. And so you have to have separate budget line items, and you make sure that whatever you spend follows the guidelines for those particular areas, whether it's private money or it's public money. And you must be ready to account for every penny that you spend.
And how do you prioritize staffing decisions during economic downturns to maintain morale and productivity?
You do your best to try to maintain your staffing. You don't want to lay anybody off if you can keep from it. It does happen where that you may have to have salary-free days, basically, on that one, where everybody has to work a few hours with no pay because of the fact that the budget has been trimmed and there's no income coming in that respect. COVID was one of those situations that while there was the triple P, the payroll protection that was going on, we still, in that particular location, we actually had sales and use tax, where a lot of our money was coming through. And whenever people are shut down, not working, you lose income coming into your budgets where you had planned for X amount of overtime and X amount of special details to be happening. And all of a sudden now everything has got to change because you need to just meet your minimum budget and be able to keep everybody paid and keep the benefits going. So it's a fine balancing act. There's never any telling somebody that no, we can't do this. All we can do is just our bare minimum because life has stopped for this short period of time, and we've got to maintain the budget and keep people employed rather than, and make sure that we can do, calls for service in that respect and still be able to keep care of at least the bare minimum services that we're required to do.
Okay. And what advice would you give to the new consultant entering the field of business financial management today?
Enter it with a heart for giving and being of service. If you're entering it for the dollar signs, this is not the business for you to be in, because you should always want to be in a situation where it's a win-win for your clients and for the vendors on that side of it, and that they are in the best interest of both, not a win-lose situation. So you need to come into this business with a heart for service and a heart for giving.
Can you discuss a time when grant funding played a critical role in turning around a client's operational challenges?
Yes, grant funding has changed that in a couple of ways, but definitely in one of them where they were able to go ahead and maintain full staffing. And by doing that, because the fact that it paid partially on the salaries. And that was one of those areas that by having the salaries and being able to provide the benefits on the side in itself, it allowed them to maintain that staffing, therefore providing the services to the public that they were expected to be able to give.
Where do you see yourself going in the future?
Oh, continuing what I'm doing as far as that goes, helping more and more businesses on a daily basis, and then just enjoying life while I'm doing it. The beauty of my business is I work all over North America, so there's not any reason to not be able to enjoy the travel while I'm actually helping my clients.
Well said. And if you had to give a piece of advice, I always ask this question. If you had to give a piece of advice to a young entrepreneur who who want to be a cop, want to be a captain, want to follow your footsteps, what kind of advice would you give them?
Get with a mentor as quick as you can. Find somebody who has been around a little bit and knows what's going on, and follow with them. Be willing to ask questions as far as that goes, and understand that sometimes no is just going to be the answer. You may not get what you would expect to be a full explanation until later, because there will be times that you'll be told no, and people above you in rank just cannot give you the full everything that you need, that you want to know at the time. You can't get the full details. It will come out later on, I promise, but there are just times that decisions have to be made. And so just understand that that will happen occasionally, and the word no is just something you have to know that you're going to hear on occasion. So get with that mentor. The mentors can help you navigate those when it feels really crazy, maybe a little turbulent, and they can help you understand what's going on at the time, and then just proceed with a giving heart.
Okay, and how can the people reach you?
Simple enough. I'm at Kathryn.Rowell at kdrowellconsulting.com. Easy enough on that. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. My profile, of course, is the www.linkedin.com /n/Kathryn D. There is a D in the middle, Rowell, Rowell. And I'm on either one of those, easy enough to find me, and I'll be happy to connect and have a chat.
Stay on the line. Thank you, everyone, for joining my show today. Y'all take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys another time. Bye.
Never waste my time. You are I want.